What's up, guys? This is Lemon Sweet Tea, and I told you in my last video that I had a bit of a project that needs to happen. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be starting on that project. If you take a look at the deck behind me, it's about shot. Okay, it's pretty much done. It's got to be replaced. I don't have much choice in the matter. At this point, there's several places on this thing where I'm afraid somebody's going to step through it and get hurt. So for that purpose, I'm going to show you guys how to rebuild a deck. You know, I look at some of these contractors. They'll charge $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 to rebuild a deck, and in all actuality, they may have between $1,500 and $2,000 in supplies. So for that reason, I'm going to kind of pass some information on to you guys. Maybe somebody can use it. Y'all stick around, we got a lot more to come. You guys take a good look. Hello, Daisy. Go on, you're my shot. If you guys take a good look, dog. This is Daisy. Daisy has had a haircut. That's the reason she looks like a drowned rat. Yes, yes, yes you do. And this is Bella. This is my lab mixed with a Australian Shepherd. That's the reason she looks fluffy for a lab. And they're both petted rotten. Absolutely petted rotten. Okay, so if you take a good look at this deck, there's several places on it where it's very, very worn out. Some places it's completely through. And just to show you guys, this knife here, it's a butter knife. It's dull. But I'm just going to take it and drop it. And I mean, it's stuck in and it broke the wood off, and just one finger I can just take and... Fella, come on, you're in the way. Go, go, stay, stay. Oy, you annoy me. Several places in this deck I can just take a knife and push right through it, and it just breaks right off. You know, there's no resistance in several places, such as this one. I mean, I go right through. A deck should not be that weak. So weak that it pulls pieces off with a pocket knife. So what we got to do here, before I can get started, all this stuff, the patio furniture, the grills, the cooler that's over here, all this stuff, it's got to come off the deck. Then I can start demolition. Through the wonderful powers of video editing, the deck has now been cleared off. I can now begin demo day. I didn't clear it off completely. I do have this little lower section, and I may or may not get to that today. We'll get to that as we can. But just give you a little walk around this thing. Whoever built this, they did not do a very good job. Okay? I mean, that's like 15, 20 nails for one little section here. They kind of overdid it. I mean, how many nails do you need in one joist? That's way too many. But as you can see, this whole thing, it's falling apart. It's warping. And so I want to build one, number one, that's a whole lot better than this, a whole lot newer, but at the same time, something that's going to last a little bit longer than this one did. And there's some proper deck care that we'll get into at the end. And again, I don't want to tell somebody not to hire a contractor, because that's how contractors make their money. They gotta have somebody that'll hire them. But you know, in that same respect, not everybody's got, you know, $6,000 that they can just spit out anytime they want to. So this is kind of for more the person wanting to rebuild a deck on a budget. So all you'll basically need to get started, some common hand tools. Take a look right here in front of me. I got a good pry bar, simple pry bar, plain old hammer, and then I got the mini sledge. And the mini sledge is for really wanting to go crazy with this thing. But first things first, we got to get rid of these rails. As you can see, I'm missing several balusters, and it's just the whole thing. It's shaky. That's dangerous. And I'm going to show you how to prevent all of that as we get into the construction phase. But first things first, we're going to start with demolition. Now this is going to take a while, and I know you guys aren't going to want to sit around, so we'll go ahead and take a break, and I'll check back when I got these rails removed. So now you can see, after about probably 15 minutes of work here, I've pretty well removed the rails. And I just wanted to show you this on the last rail to give you guys an idea of how badly this deck needs to be rebuilt. A deck should not come apart that easily. It really shouldn't. This deck is rotten, and I'm just tearing it apart almost completely by hand. Now, there are certain parts of this deck that obviously they're done. You know, the decking, the rails, they're pretty well done. But there's a lot of this thing that I really want to try and salvage to a certain degree. Such as these 6x6 posts that are left behind. You know, those don't go bad as easily. They're pressure treated to a degree that they can work with being in contact with the ground for 10, 15, 20 years. So some of these will still be useful to me in a certain sense. Now, obviously I'm going to be replacing most of the major posts here. I'm going to try and do something a little differently there. And I'll show you all about that later on. So here we are up underneath the deck. And the thing is, a lot of these joists that are under here, they may not be in too bad a shape to be reused. And if I can salvage those, I'm going to. Same goes for these 6x6 posts here. You know, I'm going to try and find a secondary purpose for them. Just so they're not going to waste. I don't like to throw away things if I don't have to. You know, if I can make a use for them later on down the road, I'm going to try to. So now that I've got most of the posts removed, having a little trouble with a couple of them. I'll get to those here in a few minutes. But now we can move on to removing the deck boards. And that is probably the easiest job to do in dismantling this thing. One of the more tedious, but at the same time the easiest. All you need, good hammer, good pry bar. Stick it up underneath it and start prying it up. The whole thing will come up. Now guys, if you build a deck, the wisest thing to do, hello Bella, is to use screws so that whenever you do have to redeck one, because you're not going to have a choice, the deck boards are going to wear out. It's going to have to be redecked every 10, 15 years unless you spend the money and get Trex boards or Hardy plank. So, it's a whole lot easier if you'll just put them down with screws, because then you can just back the screws out and take everything up, put new ones down, put the screws back in. But aside from that, we'll cover more about that whenever we get down to the end when I'm actually putting deck boards back on. Now you see some of this wood here. Take a good look. This wood that's underneath this deck board. You know, it almost looks new. I know this outer board is going to have to be replaced, but this inner board, it looks all right. And I'm probably going to try my best to save some of that lumber. So here's a pro tip. As you dismantle a deck, you're going to have extra nails. They're going to be stuck all around this thing. And you ain't gonna have much you can do with them. You don't want them scattered throughout your yard. So the best thing to do, find you a little bucket, or in this case, an old wore out cooler that I'm gonna throw away anyway. Have you a place you can throw these extra nails. It'll save you some headache whenever you come to cut your grass the next time. You're not running over a bunch of nails. That's not good. You don't want to have to pay for lawnmower tires. No tire is cheap. Lawnmower tires are no exception. And through the powers of video editing once again, we are back to absolutely no decking on this deck at all. What's on here is all loose. It's all been pulled up. It's just here kind of to give me some scaffolding to continue working. Just wanted to show this off. The reason that I give the pro tip of finding a place to throw your nails, if I didn't do that, every one of those would be on the ground and I'd have to find them later. There's still a few that I dropped, and I'm going to have to go get a big old magnet to try and find them. But this is going to save me a little bit of headache in the long run. Now the next step is going to be one of the more difficult steps. And that's going to be the removal of the joists. Taking the deck itself completely off so that I can start rebuilding. Just to give you guys an idea as to why it needs to be rebuilt. You see that sway? When I'm done with this, when I get the new one on there, it won't sway like that. There will be no give whatsoever. It'll be very sturdy, and it won't have to be redone for years to come. And this is what the deck should look like when it has been completely torn off the house. I gotta say, without my deck on here, it makes my house look a whole lot smaller. But we'll get it put back on, and it's gonna look normal again, and it's gonna look in a whole lot better shape than it was in. But with that, I'm gonna wrap up for today, and we will check back in when I start reframing this thing. As you can see, just a little teaser, I've already kind of started some of that. And once we get all that reframed, I'll probably do the next section of the video as reframing and decking on the deck itself.